Hi, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying the Student Summit so far. Welcome to this session on what happens if you decide to start a charity with Karolina Sarek and Nikita Patel. My name's Bridget, and I'll be the MC for this session. So we'll be starting with a 25-minute talk by Karolina, followed by a 20-minute talk by Nikita. Then we'll move on to a live Q&A session where they'll answer some of your questions. Throughout the talk, you can submit questions using the box to the right-hand side of this video. You can also vote for your favorite questions to push them higher up the list. Now, to introduce our speakers for the session. Karolina Sarek is co-founder and director of research at Charity Entrepreneurship, where her team aims to find and compare the most evidence-based, cost-effective, and neglected interventions in multiple cause areas. She also serves as fund manager at the EA Animal Welfare Fund and as a board member and consultant for various nonprofits and think tanks. Here's Karolina.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. I will answer questions related to what happens if you decide to start a charity. I've selected this topic because we only see charities when they're already big and well-known, like, for example, Against Malaria Foundation, the Humane League, or Oxfam. The bigger the charity, the higher the odds that you're going to hear about them. Therefore, at that point, you only see the final product. You see a very talented, well-coordinated team, highly impactful intervention, and well-set-up operations. In short, smoothly sailing ship. No wonder that if you look at yourself and your idea for a charity, you just look like a child with a twig and leaf boat, and you cannot imagine getting anywhere on it. The process of becoming an effective charity, of turning this little raft into a full ship, is mysterious, and there's no instruction on how to do it. At least there weren't until now. On a daily basis, my team at Charity Entrepreneurship and myself support those charities, helping them in finding direction, crew, and building the ship so they can sail toward the direction of becoming one of the most impactful charities. So today I will unravel some of those mysteries. I'll talk about what happens if you decide to start a charity. Of course, this process might look different for different various charities, and the route is often complicated, but I want to bring closer the experience of running your own organization. I'll do it based on examples of free organizations that we have incubated. Lead Elimination Project. On their example, I will explain how the first days of running your organization might look like. I'll talk a little bit about advantages, disadvantages, and personal fit that those first days can illustrate. I'll do the same for early months of your charity, illustrating on an example of Fish Welfare Initiative, and early years, illustrating on example of Fortified Health. Later on, I will give you a very quick update on how the route might be different from some other charities and what could be other milestones. After that, Nikita will tell you about her story and story of Fortified Health, an organization she co-founded. Fortified Health was the first organization we supported, and now GiveWell estimates that they have 25% chance of becoming one of the most effective organizations out there. So I want to take you with me on this journey through first days, months, and years of being a charity entrepreneur. So let's start with your first day. You're obviously extremely excited. After all, you're following the path that you think is the highest impact. And I do think the direct impact is the biggest advantage of this job. You know that historically, those limited numbers of charities that had impact in mind when they were starting give great success. When looking at the founders of the charities that have built evidence and cost effectiveness into the very core of their organization like New Incentive, Charity Science Health, or Fortified Health, were all just organizations built by EAs trying to have the highest impact possible. And all of them at the end became GiveWell incubated. Additionally, there were few estimates done to see how impactful starting a new organization can be compared to kind of a donation that could be directed to an effective organization that already exists. So we have two models. First one is from Peter Herford that pointed out that impact could be equivalent to donating $400,000 to top charities per year. We did a little bit more conservative model that suggests that based on kind of historical charities, the results could be equivalent to $200,000 donated a year to the most impactful charities in the world. This kind of sum suggests that the potential impact of an expected value of starting a new organization is really enormous, because only a couple of jobs and it could bring you as much in donations as starting an effective organization is. To illustrate it with the example of Jack, who is a co-founder of Leap that I already mentioned, when he was at the beginning of the program, he said that, "I think that funding effective nonprofits is one of the most high impact activities that a person can do. The incubation program can give me the tools to build the most successful, most effective version possible." And right now he's running an organization reducing lead paint poisoning, which causes significant disease burden worldwide. LEAP advocates for lead paint regulation in countries with a large and growing burden of lead poisoning from paint. And we could see from historical evidence that the progress that NGOs have been making is really, makes me really optimistic. They introduced a new law related to paint in 21 low and middle income countries, demonstrating a precedent and feasibility. And now Jack and Lucia with LEAP could make this progress even faster, potentially saving thousands of lives. But of course, it's not only the advantages that you'll discover in the first days. One of the biggest disadvantages you will unravel is work-life balance, and that at the first days of charity entrepreneurship might not be the best to start time-consuming new hobby or plan extended holidays. In short, your life-work balance is likely to suffer, and you'll start venture from scratch, or when you're testing in the field and recruit first employees, very likely 40 hours per week might not be enough. As an entrepreneur, the distinction between work and life will become like less clear. After all, you have started something that you truly believe in, that you pursue with the highest degree of autonomy, so you can choose how many hours you work, and very likely you'll choose all of them. So let's take the example of Lucia. She just started LEAP a couple of weeks ago, and she's already doing her first country visit. She's right now in Malawi. She plans to test the levels of lead in new paint market in Malawi and build relationships with stakeholders and decision makers. This time is always very intense because you have very limited time to research and to build those partnerships when you're in the field, and you want to really make the most out of it. So you have this periods of really strong stretched goals, and it's definitely not 9 to 5, a job that you might expect from other career paths. So you have to be aware of that. And of course, as your organization grows, delegation process will become more established, and you won't have necessarily, extinguish fire on the top of your regular leadership duties, and the staff will take care of operations, and you'll be able to focus on strategic questions. And all of this kind of will reduce your workload and the stress levels, but occasionally it will be definitely will be stretched. So it's very important to, on top of that, be ambitiously altruistic. This kind of the element of personal fit is going to be very important in early days and throughout the whole life of your organization. And I know there's lots of entrepreneurs who just love ambitions and they're extremely ambitious, and that's really great. And it's very common, but it's very easy to be ambitious about the wrong thing. If you're ambitious about how big your charity is or how amazing it looks like from the outside, you can achieve that. You can end up with very big, amazing looking organization, but that didn't necessarily do any good. So what you need to be ambitious about is how many lives you save, or whatever your underlying metric of doing good is. But that's the thing that you have to be laser focused on and truly ambitious about. You want to wake up knowing that you're pushing the limits of what is possible, but in the right area. So for example, lead poisoning from exposure to lead paint is a significant contributor to death and disability worldwide. Eliminating lead paint in even one country for policy change would already be a huge win, affecting 30 million Dalis or increasing income in the country by about $3 million. It's crazy how much good it can do. But that's not the end of LEAP's agenda. They also have countries like Madagascar, Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso, and Guatemala that they want to target with their campaigns over the years. But there's 113 other countries without confirmed regulation, and they're all on LEAP's agenda. Okay, so you survived your first days. You've learned about personal fit. You've learned about work-life balance and the right impact you might have starting your charity. Congratulations. So you're starting your early months of your organization. And one of the first thing that you will notice is that you're already starting building up skills. If this refers kind of those kind of skill building refers to the abilities you acquire from working a job that could be cross-applicable to other careers, especially those kind of related to impactful outcomes. So if credentials are tools that get you that job, skills are the tools that will help you succeed in a job. That's why building skills is even more important than building credentials, because becoming highly skilled enables you to work your way up in a job that for using your hardworkingness and your general abilities and skills. So for example, you might be hired as an intern and then work your way up, or being headhunted. A strong resume alone cannot keep you in a job for long if you're just not that good at that job. So due to the wide range of challenging tasks, entrepreneurs will learn a lot every day. And very often you're just going to pick up skill, start learning, start doing it. And by the time you master this given skill, you will end up hiring a person to do it for you. For example, like operations, you might hire a first person, operation person, a couple of months of running organization. But by the time that you know exactly everything about every little law and details, and you know how to do bookkeeping and so on and so forth. So you gain this kind of area. And you move on to a different area of work that is not covered by a staff that you have. And picking up and mastering new skill is very quickly is extremely valuable. And this is one of the things that you really gain when you're starting your organization. So, for example, taking the example of Fish Welfare Initiative, when they were starting, they didn't have that much knowledge. Neither of them had a degree on biology or fish welfare. They were straight out of bachelor, so they were students like yourself. And they had little experience or no experience in management. But what they had is will to learn, and they learned quickly. In the first 2 months, they learned a ton about actual subject matter and management. Now they are advising global certification schemes and producers on how to increase welfare of fish, and are managing an organization employing 9 staff. And this knowledge is highly relevant to help one of the most neglected farm animals, and include transferable skills like operations and people management as one of the most desirable skills on competitive job market. Other things that they've learned is how to build a systematic decision-making process, or how to not to spend too long on every project, and how to keep yourself accountable, and how to receive feedback and know when to ignore the feedback that you're getting. Those skills are extremely important and extremely transferable, and you can already build them in the first months of running your organization. But of course, it's not only the fun and great tasks that you'll gain experience, you'll also gain experience in those unglamorous tasks. And this is one of the disadvantages. Kind of to stick with the Fish Welfare Initiative example, like the movie version of your life as a charity entrepreneur might involve speaking at a prestigious conference or drafting research report in a shiny co-working space in a global capital. But the reality is often less glamorous. Haven, co-founder of Fish Welfare Initiative, described it as, you might be sweating in a tiny hotel room in a foreign country as you try to fix your internet connection to update your organization's website. Yes, it's happened to all of us. Initially, your organization only has you and your co-founder as employees. So by definition, you will have to carry out lots of the responsibilities and tasks. The large majority of duties at NGOs is operational. It's revising budgets, talking to lawyers, drafting work contracts, and so on and so on. So this is particularly important to consider if you are coming from like a research background and expect charity entrepreneurship to be an applied research fellowship, which is really not the case. It's definitely more operational. Well, the upside of that is that the breadth of tasks you are building is really providing you a possibility to build skills and career capital that I already mentioned. You'll also get to understand every process from scratch, a good remedy against the detached decision-making that hampers many large organizations. And of course, you will be able to hire staff eventually, so you can focus your time on more strategic responsibilities. In the meantime, you could outsource repetitive tasks or IT-related tasks to freelancers, but definitely there will be still some unglamorous tasks that you will have to deal with. That's why it's important to be self-motivated. This kind of personal fit element is really, really important, and you'll definitely experience how important it is in the early months of your organization. As an entrepreneur, you have to convince many people that your idea is a great one, but the first person you have to convince is yourself. You have to be able to get yourself up in the morning without a boss breathing down your neck. You have to motivate yourself to do unpleasant but necessary tasks. It is difficult, and some people just can't get the work done without a push. Having that already mentioned, not only was sitting in this small hotel room in India of temperature of 40 degrees, full of mosquitoes and with barely working lights, he was locked down there for months when coronavirus pandemic hit. It was lonely. His only friends around were stray dogs. Internet connection was inconsistent, which made work and connection with coworkers and friends really, really hard. He needed a lot of grit and motivation to persist and work through the obstacles. Now he's back, happy, healthy, and everything, and he looks back at this time with sentiment because he made the best out of it, and he turned this adversity into an advantage and used the time to interview many organizations and fish producers in India, utilizing the overlapping time zones and all the free time that he had during the lockdown. And I think that this kind of self-motivation and resilience is a very important ability. As an entrepreneur, you can set up board and peer groups to help you with motivations, but when it comes down to it, being able to motivate yourself is crucial. Moving on to your early years, on the example of Fortified Health, what you might expect in the first years from the perspective of advantages of running your organization is that your charity is not going to only have direct impact, but there are also going to be many flow-through effects and the indirect impact that you will have. Doing good year to year is very important, but many are concerned with making sure that they can continue to have large impact throughout their whole life. So when considering this factor, this kind of factor of indirect effect, you can look, for example, on personal long-term impact, and you'll see that kind of when you take it into account, charity entrepreneurship is a career path that enables you to build skills, build credentials, background, knowledge, and therefore puts you in a strong position to do good in the future. Similarly, funding a charity, effective charity especially, can have wide ranges of positive effects on charitable sector as a whole. For example, if your charity is actually good, it can raise standards in the field, spread or stabilize key concept, build the effective altruism or effective charity movement, or encourage the allocation of more resources to a given area. There are hundreds of effects that similar to those that a new charity can have as a whole, in the sector as a whole. And I think, like, from my perspective, the most striking flow-through effect or indirect impact that founding Fortified Health was the inspiration and proof of concept that Brenda and Nikita provided with Fortified Health, because they achieved such success with just minimal guidance from us and just an idea for flower fortification. We saw that what could be done if we had done that full time. So Joey and I formally started Charity Entrepreneurship, and in just 2 years, we helped to start 9 charities that we hope to be as good as Fortified Health or even more. I think this is kind of one of the examples where of unexpected side effects of your own organization and the impact that it can have outside of like the direct route that you establish. But of course, that also has, as many unexpected positive effects can occur, there's a lot of unexpected negative results that can occur, which creates a lot of uncertainty. There's definitely no clear path to starting effective charity. And even successful startups involve a lot of uncertainty. When Fortified Health was starting out, they wanted to gain more knowledge about the process of fortifying flour instead of just like jumping to the implementation already immediately. When they kind of talked to experts and said that they want to fortify flour with iron and folic acid, they heard from some of them that they really shouldn't do flour, that rice is the thing that people do right now, and that by fortifying rice, they're going to be even better, even bigger. And they were also saying that they also kind of connected to some people who already had partnerships with government, and they could arrange partnership for Fortified Health if they would decide to go with rice fortification instead of flour fortification. Some of them promised that they're going to make way more traction and that they're going to be bigger, faster, and so on and so forth. And if Brenda and Nikita have went with this advice, they might have not been well incubated. They crunched numbers, and rice just didn't look that cost effective compared to flour. So they stick to flour, and that was a good choice. I wish that it was just like one example, or where their charity or many other charities could just get off track and basically drown their ship before even they build it fully. So when you're running your charity, you're going to be faced with many choices, and you won't know which decision you're going to make is going to be good or not. Sometimes the feedback loops might be long. For example, you choose program A instead of B, and after a couple of years, an RCT comes back with showing that your program has 0 result. That would be devastating. So there's unfortunately this element of uncertainty that plays into that. But that's why you have to focus on what is the most important, the impact that you might be having. That will help you. They will help you guide your every decision that you make during your charity. Rice would have been an easier option, but instead, Fortified Health took the longer, harder, but ultimately more impactful route. And following on kind of this story, it is very important that you're doing it for the right reason. There are many reasons to start a charity, and not all of them are altruistic. Some people do it to impress others, to have adventures, or to feel good about themselves. And if you let those kind of motivation interfere with your ultimate goal of helping people, you might be harming them. Many people will lose their lives because of misguided motivation. Likewise, for example, prestige, a desire to impress others might cloud your judgment. Going kind of continuing with the RISE story of Fortified Health, if they went with that option and signed a big governmental partnership in the first year and fortified lots of RISE, they would look better. They would look more prestigious, but ultimately they would have done less good for the world, because the cost effectiveness of fortifying rice versus flour is very, very different. And then for less people will be helped with their intervention. That's why kind of this element of personal fit, doing it for the right reason, is extremely crucial. So now I presented a couple of examples of how you might experience your first days, your first months, and first years of running your organization. And I presented it based on 3 examples of charities. But of course, that's not all the charities that we help incubate, and all of them have their unique milestones. So very quickly, to tell you a little bit about what is going on with them, those are the charities that we incubated in 2019. It's been a year since their incubation, and so far, animal advocacy careers. Since last year, they began to pilot 3 services that they offer. First, management and leadership training, one-on-one career coaching, and online course and workshops in effective animal advocacy. This last year, they also received support from EA Animal Welfare Fund, ACE, and a grant of over $400,000 from Open Philanthropy Project to continue their work and continue to help hundreds of people to direct their career into more impactful area within animal advocacy. HLI has been working on a number of research projects this year that included producing theoretical papers on the nature and measurement of well-being, a meta-analysis on the effects of cash transfers on subjective well-being, and a cost area report on mental health and access to pain relief. Policy Entrepreneurship Network built a partnership with Ukraine-based Advocacy Center, with whom they were launched a pilot campaign called Price of Smoking. It was presented at a press conference with a health ministry with the purpose to illustrate health and economic case for increasing tobacco taxation in Ukraine. And lastly, Suvita have made substantial progress in their work to increase uptake of routine child immunization in India. They have delivered a remote kind of minimal valuable product of their immunization ambassadors program, and they were piloting a new systematic iterations of that, delivering support to 5,000 children in Bihar state. They've also raised approximately $200,000 for their work in the first layer to continue their work further. This year, we incubated 5 more organizations. Those are the new organizations that they are just starting up. You know, they are still this little raft that they are trying to like hold the mast and survive on the very, very intense sea. So those I already mentioned you about LEAP. But this one, we also included 4 more charities outside of that. So Canopy is addressing mental health through guided cognitive behavioral therapy. Guided CBT is cost-effective, scalable, and evidence-based intervention, and they are developing and testing a program to treat pregnancy-related mental health issues in the United States, and they plan to scale to low- and middle-income country in 2020, plausibly to scale it to India. Family Empowerment Media is an evidence-based nonprofit that aims to enable informed family planning and birth spacing decision through clear, compelling, accurate, radio-based communication. Also, Animal Ask, that is founded with the express aim to assist animal advocacy organizations in their effort to reduce farm animal suffering by providing research to help optimize and prioritize future asks, kind of directed to corporations and governments. Imagine kind of like helping people make decision about like the next cage-free campaign, or should it be cage-free or something else. And lastly, Giving Green is a new initiative at ID Insight that we also incubated that aims to direct dollars toward effective evidence-based projects that combat the climate crisis. It has been generating excitement with their recommendation being picked up by Vox and the New York Times. I hope you have a better sense of how it might feel when you're starting your own organization, what you can achieve in the first days, months, and years of your organization. So what could be next steps if you are interested in this career path? Well, I think it's good to assess your fit. There are like quick and deep ways to assess your fit. The quick one would be just ask yourself, can you motivate yourself to take on a project and see through an independent project, or take an online course from the very beginning to the very end without any external motivation whatsoever? You can also take a CE quiz that we have on our website. But a deeper way to assess your fit is get through an honest advice from people who have seen many projects founded succeeding and those projects that failed as well. You can also apply for the annual CE Incubation Program. Like, the process of applying is not just straight application. It's also just kind of a consulting, a one-on-one coaching process to help you figure out your fit for entrepreneurship. And lastly, you can check out our CE Handbook, How to Start Effective Nonprofit, that you can download free on our website. If you have more free time and you want to read more about entrepreneurship and about running organizations, you can look at the books that I recommended. I really recommend all of them, and I think they will get you closer to, get you better vision for how running an organization might look like. Well, and just like that, we saw how the charities are progressing, slowly building their ship, starting with twig and leaf. And in the first couple of days, they started adding some logs and solid wood. A couple of months in, they added a new crew member to help them out. And just like that, in a couple of years, they have a solid ship moving gracefully through the water. And just like that, you could slowly build your own charity as well. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, we'll now hear from Nikita Patel, who co-founded Fortified Health in 2017. Fortified Health is a wheat flour fortification initiative based in India. It was launched with support from what was to become Charity Entrepreneurship. It has since received 2 GiveWell incubation grants to scale up in Maharashtra and West Bengal. Nikita previously worked in communications at Malaria Consortium and has also been a research and outreach intern at the Center for Effective Altruism. Here's Nikita.
Hi everyone, I'm Nikita. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Fortified Health, and today I'm chatting about what happens if you decide to start a charity, with some notes from co-founding Fortified Health. So firstly, I've been asked to share a picture of me during my student years, and I thought this one summed it up pretty well, which was essentially exhausted and joyful after my final exam, surviving on 1 hour sleep. Just a quick overview of what I'm going to chat about today. So firstly, just a bit of an intro into who we are, going into our growth and the way we've developed, and also some of the peaks and troughs of starting a charity. So Fortified Health is a non-profit working in Maharashtra and West Bengal, and we work to reduce and prevent incidents of anemia and neural tube defects at population scale through the medium of fortifying wheat flour. And so for anyone who isn't sure what fortification is, it's essentially the process of adding small doses of micronutrients to staple foods, and that in turn increases the nutritional value of the food. So large-scale food fortification is considered especially effective as a public health intervention, since it reaches large parts of a population and doesn't necessarily require a lot of behavior change from the consumers. It was Charity Science in September 2017 who supported us with a seed grant, and Fortified Health was kind of a guinea pig, and it eventually led to the birth of Charity Entrepreneurship. So our initial startup story began because Brendan, my co-founder, had reached out to Joey Savoy over here in search of a high impact opportunity before knowing whether he wants to take the leap into medicine or do something a bit different. And so he asked Joey if Joey had any upcoming roles in Charity Science, the organization that Joey co-founded and was leading. Joey said no, but that if Brendan wanted, he should go and start a venture of his own based on 4 ideas that Charity Science had whittled down as very promising ideas that they were excited to see started. So Brendan was a little tentative about this, went away to think about it and discussed with some people he trusted, and eventually returned to Joey to mention he'd considered the potential and would give it a go. And from there, he began searching for a co-founder, and this is where I came in. Brendan had posted, I think it was on the EA Careers page, and I had coincidentally come across Brendan's post looking for a co-founder. I was happy in my existing job at Malaria Consortium in London, but felt maybe in the future I could have had a greater impact in a smaller organization or even a non-existent one. And so I messaged Brendan to ask him some questions rather than apply outright, since I thought I was probably a bit underqualified for the role and maybe too young. And I wanted to better learn if this sort of thing would be a good fit for me later down the line. And in that conversation, Brendan encouraged me to apply, so I did. And several rounds of interviews later, Brendan asked me to be his co-founder. Sounds a bit like a marriage proposal. But this wasn't the end. We were both quite indecisive people, also quite precise people. So it took us a couple of months to actually decide whether we wanted to go ahead and take this leap together. So some of the things that came up in our decision making that made us particularly wary were some of the discussions we had with other people. So people close to us, or some people from the effective altruism community who were maybe less optimistic about the potential for impacts or our fit for the roles. The second one was our own worry about the fit for the role. So was this the right time we should be doing this? We didn't really know our co-founder very well, so was that going to be an issue? Were we too inexperienced? We also weren't from the country of operations, so that was another consideration. The third thing that made us wary was career disruption. So we were concerned about delaying or regressing on our own career goals, and taking this risk at kind of what we thought was a crucial stage in our career building. And so that included Brendan potentially delaying medical school, and me also leaving a secure job that I really enjoyed in a large effective organisation. In terms of what made us optimistic, it was again discussions. So discussing with some people in the A community and loved ones who were particularly positive about the opportunity. And the other was hours of discussion with each other between me and Brendan, and also Joey, about the fit, the timing, the potential scenarios, the potential for impact. The second was we had confirmed seed funding from Charity Science. And that gave us some level of financial stability, and that was very reassuring for us in the beginning. The third was the prior success of Charity Science Health, which was the SMS vaccine reminder organisation that Joey had co-founded. And this was an indicator to us that other charity startups may work, especially ones setting out with a foundation based on effectiveness. So our decision to start primarily came down to the following conclusions about the opportunity. And that was, one, good timing for risk taking. So if not now, when would we ever take a high risk career decision like this? The second was good enough intervention evidence. There seemed to be a winning case for the potential for high impact. And the third was there was some level of co-founder compatibility evidence. So me and Brendan got on well, we had complementary skill sets, and Joey, our mentor, also had confidence in our compatibility as co-founders. So I'm just going to whiz through our growth over the last 3 years. In 2017, in the initial months, once we had taken that leap to decide to start the organization, we read up on evidence and conducted remote scoping conversations with experts. And this then led to us setting up and building a country selection data and spreadsheet, and also then conducting a scoping trip to India to better understand if that was somewhere where our initiative would work. In 2018, we developed proposals, applied for and secured our first GiveWell incubation grant, which was approximately $300,000. We finalized the states in India that we wanted to operate in. We conducted our first hiring process and built our first India-based team, and we thus set up operation and office in Mumbai. In 2019, we grew further. We confirmed our first mill partnership in January, moving up to 4 by November 2019. We developed 2 government proposals to work within the government safety net schemes in those states, Maharashtra and West Bengal. And we applied for and secured a second GiveWell incubation grant, which amounted to about $1 million. And as of this year, 2020, obviously progress has slowed a bit from COVID-19, and I think this is the case for a lot of organizations. So we've confirmed our 5th mill partnership. We hired our first in-house specialist mill team, which was a big win for us. We almost doubled the team size to 10 people. And we've also improved our in-house operational capacity, such as HR systems, like performance evaluation, which the things that kind of get pushed to the side when you're doing all the urgent things involved in starting up a charity. So what does an average day look like at Fortify Health? I'd say the answer to this is there obviously is no such thing, and I think that's fairly self-explanatory. So it actually varies a lot, and this depends on a few things. So firstly, it depends on which year we're talking about. So the types of activities have varied a lot from year 1 to year 3. And so it went from, in year 1, a team of 2 co-founders based in Boston, kind of just doing scoping and a bit of research, to a team of 10 people based predominantly in India by year 3, working on implementation, the big change in team size and focus and location. The next is the time of year. So often there are some times of year where we notice contextual factors affect our outputs. And so one example is the wheat supply chain changes throughout the year. And usually we notice in like January to March that there's a lull in the wheat supply chain. And this initially impacted like the type of work we do in this time, since partnership building is not a priority then. And then the other is funding rounds. So when we're doing fundraising, we push a lot towards focusing on our interactions with GiveWell and having everything ready. The third is partnership uptake. So often when a potential partner shows interest in signing a partnership, we have a lot of push on partner-specific outputs. So for example, organization of contracts for those partners, procuring equipment, installing the equipment, developing the monitoring and evaluation system for that partner. So an average day really could involve anything from writing up a contract for a mill, reviewing a government proposal, preparing fundraising proposals, hiring, developing organizational systems, tracking finances, website work. It's kind of the whole package. So there are, as expected, many highlights from charity entrepreneurship. I'd say, so I've broken this down into 2. I'd say the organizational ones, so the ones that everybody in the organization feels have been special peaks, have been securing and celebrating each partnership. Also securing funding, those have been probably the biggest milestones. And also just as an everyday one is being part of a like-minded team and having a team who has similar values. On a personal level, I think the highlights have been the daily drive towards impact, kind of reminding yourself, even on the days when you can't see it, but having that in a just understanding that that's the purpose. The next is hiring and watching the team grow and flourish. That's a personal favorite. And team culture building. And the final is kind of just covering different areas of work. There is a true variety in the kind of work we do week to week. There are also troughs or challenges of charity entrepreneurship. So for us, in an organizational sense, it has to be those unexpected external issues. So could be, again, what I mentioned about the wheat supply chain lull, or COVID, which I know that's affected a lot of organizations, and field work, and also millers facing personal delays. So those are the kinds of problems we didn't necessarily anticipate occurring. On a personal level, I think my challenges have been more around confidence. So kind of managing people and being expected to be a leader, but without having any training in that. And I think that's something I hope people talk about more going forward. And I hope we kind of help each other out in the future. The second is numbers. I think anyone on my team will know that numbers are not my best friend. And so this is crucial, and I think I was quite happy that I found a co-founder who lives for spreadsheets, and so this is one of the things that made us compatible. But I think still you have to use data and numbers in this job, and I still find that quite nerve-wracking sometimes. And the third is imposter syndrome. So I think often feeling like you're not necessarily the right fit for this role, or the right person to be doing it, or feeling like someone else could do a much better job, feeling like you have no idea what you're doing. And I think despite evidence indicating that this isn't necessarily true, I sometimes find it hard to believe. And I think quite a few people who have set up charities, I think, feel the same way. So as a final point, I kind of wanted to discuss next steps if you are considering charity entrepreneurship as a career path. And so there are some considerations to take before, and some to take once you've made that decision to go ahead and start an organization. And so before you go ahead and start, I think firstly it's really important to talk to a lot of people, a lot of thoughtful people, before, while, and after jumping into the project, from different communities. So from your family, from your friends, from the effective altruism community. It can be a whole range, but I think get as many opinions as possible. The second is to know who you are. And I think this is the most important one. And I think a lot of introspection is needed in order to take the leap. So I think you need to figure out what your strengths are, what you can bring, what your personality is. Do you cope well with change? What can help you cope better with change? And then also, from knowing who you are, you can figure out, what do I need to find in a co-founder to complement my skill set? So not all the burden is on you to kind of start this thing. And I think co-founder match is absolutely essential. In terms of once you've decided to take the leap, firstly, I think it's really important to be critical. That's critical in evaluating your plans periodically and in between evaluations, and trust that you've been thoughtful enough to execute without excessive self-doubt, but also hold on to humility. The second is to test the waters in responsible ways. So try and become aware of what parts of the work you thrive or flounder in, and decide where or when to grow and when to delegate. Thirdly, hire locally and not just within sort of the effective altruism community bubble. So once you've settled on a location or a country of operation, build that dream team and evolve as you go. Fourthly, I think this one's self-evident, but collaborate in strong community partnerships. These are essential. And finally, be wary of colonialist aspects of charity entrepreneurship. So be wary that we might not be the source of the best solutions, and that the history of global health and development work has been motivated by and oriented around economic benefits for colonial powers, rather than necessarily always benefiting the people. And yeah, finally, just cultivate a sense of purpose in trying to potentially do high impact things, even if your specific attempt fails. And just to finish off, I thought I'd share a few moments of the last 3 years at Fortified Health. So at the bottom here, we have our office in Pune, which was a very fun place to be, but unfortunately has closed down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. On the top or middle right here, we have the day that Brendan and I decided to name Fortified Health, as well as veto Brendan's suggestion of Coordinate Iron, which you can kind of see here. And finally, we have at the top left, a scoping trip to Kolkata to understand better whether West Bengal was a place that, or state that we could see the intervention working out well. All right, that's pretty much everything. So thank you very much, and I really look forward to meeting you guys in the Q&A.
Okay, thank you both so much for those talks, Karolina and Nikita. It's really inspiring and just very impressive, the work that you've done and what you've achieved with the organisations. And thank you so much for joining us here for this live Q&A session. I see we've got a number of questions and we don't actually have that much time. So I feel like we'll just jump straight into it if that's okay with both of you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Bridget.
Okay. So the first question, which I think is a great one, is when starting a charity in a field that aligns with EA concepts, we often face cause areas that are already the aim of many charities. How do you decide whether you should start a new charity and maybe directing the money away from other charities to your own charity, or whether you should invest in the improvement of already existing charities?
Yeah,
Go to you first.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a brilliant question. And one of the biggest consideration we have when facing the decision if we should be starting a new charity or not. And that's why we decided to kind of build into this decision or consideration into kind of our cost effectiveness model when we are modeling the effects of intervention. So for example, we do take into consideration contractuals. So what else those kind of donations would do, and literally just discount our impact of our potential charities by that value of the funding that would go to otherwise different charity working within that field. So we always kind of try to build it into consideration. And I do think kind of like this is an important aspect of looking when selecting where to start a charity, to look for the gaps where obviously we don't want to start charity in literally the same country, in literally the same cause area, if there's already effective organization working out there. So analyzing the gaps is very important aspect of consideration as well. And kind of finally, if one decides to start a charity, then obviously always something we recommend to our charities that went for our program is to look for the contractors of the funding. So if they can fundraise from, for example, not effectiveness minded donor, and therefore only kind of takes money away from less effective organization, that's kind of always what we encourage. And, only at the very least kind of try to fundraise if they cannot. I try to find from sources where we might be taking dollars from other effective charities, but this is like really last resort, and only if we think that the charity, and according to estimates, the charity is more impactful than the other one. So this is the kind of how to make this decision about that. And there's another aspect of kind of like the flow through effects that starting effective organization in the field where there are already existing organization is that by starting effective organization in the field, we're also kind of raising the bar of effectiveness for all the charities. Mm-hmm. So there might be it might be the case that if you start effective organization, other charities will have to kind of raise their bar of effectiveness and improve their work as well. So there might be flow through effects of starting charity on actually improving existing charities. So that might be the case as well. And when it comes to like the crucial consideration, I think it's just like the question of tractability. Can you actually improve already existing organization? And if you can, and kind of it checks out with your expected value calculation, the value of kind of this improvement, that this is a good option. But I do think the quick question is tractability. And I know that historically it's been very hard to kind of influence other organizations, even from within those organizations. So that's why kind of we decided to start new organization instead of improving currently existing ones. But of course, taking into account the contractors of funding and everything.
Yeah, cool. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, great. Nikita, was there anything that you wanted to say on that question?
Yeah, so I think Karolina made some great points, and those were all considerations that we had. And so another concern, and one that we tried to resolve this same concern was just speaking with players already working in the field. So we spoke to a lot of nutrition players in India as well as internationally, and scoped the needs and the gaps through a lot of remote calls. And so it was the final leap was kind of from the endorsement of these major players saying, yes, we do have gaps and we do need more inputs. And so that was kind of the final part that made us take the leap.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. So the next question is, I guess, about, the practicalities of being a charity entrepreneur. So the question is, many potential founders are not able or do not want to forgo a stable salary. What are your thoughts on being a part-time, for example, 30 hours per week, entrepreneur together with other co-founders?
Yeah, so I think this is a really important question, and I think one that I'm surprised hasn't been asked more. And I think it is important to get some initial. Oh, hang on, sorry.
Oh, I think we might have lost Nikita, but
okay, I'll take it on.
So
yeah, it seems that me and Nikita have like a little bit different perspective on that. From my perspective, I do, as I mentioned in our talk, 40 hours a week might not be enough if you're starting out, and definitely it will require a lot of work, especially at the very beginning when you're shaping the organization, fundraising for the first time, setting the strategic direction, and starting to work on the implementation of your intervention. So I do think there's a lot of need of upfront investment. At the same time, we actually have a charity that we incubated that has one person working full-time on the charity and the other one being part-time. So this is kind of option that you might have as well. If you have two co-founders, one person being full-time, other person being part-time, and that being kind of easier way in, and until you gather enough funding to be able to secure your salary for a longer period of time, that's kind of what dynamic you might want to stay in, and then only then transform to fully full-time. So this is an option as well, especially if you can work with somebody else. It seems that we have Nikita back, so I just answered, Nikita, the question, so Phil, please to continue with your answer.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to check, are we on the question kind of about being able to kind of start—
Do things part-time?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So one thing is I'm quite risk averse, and this is a question that I think is really important, and I would have considered this back then too. And I think mental well-being is really important in starting an organization. And so if financial instability is going to be a sort of dent in that, I really don't see harm in beginning part-time, especially while scoping the opportunities. Well, there's not too much travel, but I would say that it also can't be totally rigid. So one of the main parts of starting at Fortified Health involved is traveling out to India for some scoping trips, and also being flexible with times with different time zones. And I think while that doesn't necessarily require 40-hour weeks, it does require a lot of flexibility. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we've only got a few more minutes left, but I think this last question is a very appropriate one for the audience, and a good one to finish on. And it relates a little bit to the previous question. So how can current students set themselves up to be successful in charity entrepreneurship? In a similar vein to the previous question, would it be possible to co-found a charity as a student?
Yeah, I think me and Karolina may differ on this. So I personally think it's quite important to get some initial experience, and that's because I found it really helpful to observe having brilliant managers in my last job, and then implementing that in this role as much as I can. And I think if I hadn't had that experience, it would have been quite difficult to just go ahead and manage. And so one thing with charity entrepreneurship is the initial stage might be research and kind of working together with your co-founder, but 3 years in, the majority, I would say, of the role is managing people and being a people person. And I think if you never had that kind of role model, it can be, if you're not very confident, to pick those up along the way and improvise. So that would be my Yeah,
I agree with Nikita that management and kind of like making good decisions is going to be majority of your work after 2 or 3 years of from starting a charity. So it will be important aspects of that. That being said, I do think that at least looking at the charities that have been started through CE Incubation Program, we had charities that have been started by students or just people who have undergraduate and decide not to pursue a further degree. And I do think they've been really working amazingly, and I'm really inspired of how much they were able to do and how quickly they were able to learn how to manage people, how to set up the operations, and how to kind of lead the organization, even in that kind of like younger age and that stage and the career development. So I do think it is possible to start effective organization, even if you're just a student or you just finish your studies. And it's a matter of having good mentors who will be able to lead you through this kind of key period when you're learning how to manage, and be able to give you feedback, and also about explicitly kind of prioritizing the skills and learning the skill as you go. And I agree with Nikita, observing good managers is a very good way, but you can also do it from afar, for example, your mentors who plausibly could be very good managers.
Okay, great. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, which is a real shame because there's heaps of questions there, and it seems like there's so much interest in this. So we really appreciate you joining us, both of you. But yeah, perhaps if you have any final words, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I would say that, very broadly for any kind of type of role within charity entrepreneurship sector, both starting charities and working for effective charity, the skill that will be most important will be having making good decision, will be having good judgment. So if you could
if you can prioritize this skill, I do think it was very transferable skill that it's worth having.
Yeah, I totally agree with Karolina. And I think for me, it's just, and I'm think maybe I'm speaking to the wrong audience here, but just make sure you're going into this for the right reasons and just being prepared to fail. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, as an initial founder of a hopefully effective organization.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, thank you both so much for joining us. Now, for everybody at home, before you leave the session, if you could please give us your feedback in the polls section of the live chat, we'd really appreciate it. Because love to learn how to improve. Okay, thanks everybody. That's all.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.